a notebook and pen on you? You can write working on the audio. Anybody?
Oh, I end up putting it in the chat.
Okay.
Oh, that's even better.
I got nothing.
Oh, there we go.
Working on the audio. Anybody?
What's it up now?
I know.
Oh, there it is. Yep. Got it.
Oh, that's even better.
Oh, that's me playing it on my phone. There we go. All right.
There we go.
Awesome. Yeah, we had. Okay.
All right.
He sacrificed for us. Okay. All right, guys. So, welcome to Order on the Court. Did this whole spiel before, but I guess we got to do it again. But that's all good. It's me, Clan the Spurs fan. We got Maddie from Spurs Fan Blog. How you doing, Maddie?
What's up, my guy?
Yeah. We got Harrison. He's the stats guy of the group. What's up, Harrison from San Antonio Spurs Talk?
How you doing, man? Hang in there.
I'm doing good. And our boy Rob, he can't really hear us right now, but he's working on that. Rob from Buck and Spurs, how you doing? I'm doing good. Okay, cool. All right, so basically what we're going to be talking about is LaMarcus Aldridge and the whole situation that's going on with him. So basically what happened, if you're not up to speed with it, is basically LaMarcus Aldridge, he responded to a tweet that was actually just found this out that it was from Damian Lillard. I thought it was just from the Trailblazers, but it was from Damian Lillard. And it was basically a tweet that said, if you could have a former player on your team currently, who would it be? And the tweet was, I'd take LaMarcus. LaMarcus responded to it with the two eyes. I know you know the two eyes where it's like, yeah. So he responded with the two eyes, and we all know what that means. It's like, hey, I'm kind of feeling that. So how are you guys feeling in regards to Mark Aldridge's response to that? I'll start with you, Maddie.
Yeah, it was quite the you saw quite the response from Spurs fans on social media. You know, especially Spurs Twitter in general. They were not very happy with him. a lot of LaMarcus Aldridge hate today, and you know, I totally understand it. You know, we've had our ups and downs with him ever since he came to us in 2016, and you know, there was the whole requesting for a trade spiel. And I understand the frustrations. I mean, it's been such a roller coaster with LaMarcus. You know, I might catch some flack for this, but I'm gonna defend him a little bit. I've been a LaMarcus Aldridge fan for the most part. I've had my issues with him, just like everyone. But you know, I just hope as Spurs fans, you know, we appreciate him more, especially when he leaves, because I got the thumbs up from Rob. Okay, I guess he can hear us or something now. But no, I mean, I was going through just some of his old stats and watching some old videos of him, and people really forget that 2017-18 year when Kawhi was MIA. LaMarcus just straight carried us that year to 47 wins in the playoffs, and I mean, I get it. The past couple of years haven't been ideal. We've been a 7th seed. You know, we haven't been a contender or anything like that, but. You know, given the circumstances that, you know, wasn't his fault, talking about the Kawhi ordeal, you know, he's done a pretty good job for us in my eyes the past couple seasons. You know, he's been an all-star, an all-NBA player. And people forget, in 2017-18, he was a top 10 MVP candidate. I mean, he balled out that year. And, you know, I'm just saying this, you know, as far as the tweet goes, I mean, as humans in general, we tend to overreact to things. I'm not saying this means nothing. I'm not saying it means everything. I mean, I didn't like it because if it means nothing, then why are you tweeting it? Because you're gonna, you know, stir the pot with Spurs fans. But you know, if it does mean something, and it is kind of that like, hey, I see you guy, like I'm gonna be there in a year or two, then it's like, dude, you just keep that crap off Twitter. You know, that's not how Spurs players do it. You know, we don't need to see that. Like, if you want to go back to Portland, that's fine, but you know, doing it through subtle messages on Twitter and Instagram is not the way to go about it. But, you know, like I said, I still like LaMarcus. You know, like I said before, I hope he stays at Spurs, at least for the short term. but I understand the anger towards him from Spurs fans. I really do. But I hope they just maybe calm down a little bit and just kind of take a step back, breathe, and just don't hate on LaMarcus so much.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from because we were left with very little when Kawhi did what he did, and from that situation, honestly, even if people have to admit it reluctantly, LaMarcus Aldridge was probably the best thing that kind of came out of it. I mean, as far as the consistent player, the consistent play, one guy that we can kind of lean on, and for the most part, Popovich has kind of played through him for the most part. So, I mean, I totally get where you're coming from with that. What about you, Harrison?
So I got three things. One, if Damian Lillard is picking from a pool of former players of the Trailblazers, one, how does he not pick Clyde Drexler? That team needs a small forward.
I think it was his former teammates.
Okay, if former teammates, then that makes sense. But yeah, everyone was saying former players. I was like, he picked, and no disrespect to LaMarcus, but he picked LA over probably a top 50 guy of all time. But second, like we were saying, my biggest issue with it was, I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal personally. I think people are getting all up in arms over nothing. My issue with it is I don't think LaMarcus really meant anything by it. But he needs to pick better wording on that. Like we said, that little eyes emoji, I mean, there's a lot of connotation there. And people tend to start reading into things that they never needed to be reading into in the first place and all that. I mean, it would have been better if he just said, like, hey, my guy, I enjoyed playing with you too, or something like that. But, he put the eyes out there and it gets people talking. But I will say, it's been a known fact that he said he wants to go back to Portland. So I don't know why this is anything new.
Yeah.
I firmly believe he's committed to the team, will play out his contract, he'll play hard for the team, but he's always said he wanted to go back and play with Dame. I mean, they're good friends. They've stayed in touch. I mean, he knows CJ too. They're good friends. I mean, it's nothing new. And then third, one thing we can get into is I want to know how the league is going to interpret this, because I know it's just an innocent fan question, but we've seen, Magic Johnson get fined millions for doing this exact same thing, saying, "Oh, I'd love to have Anthony Davis on my team," and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm not sure exactly the protocol with players as with front office people, but that could be viewed as tampering if he's trying to sway a player in public to a team like that. And I don't necessarily know or suspect that that's what Dame was doing. But again, similar to LaMarcus and the eye thing, that's kind of the way it comes across. So I'd be interested to see their take. But otherwise, I mean, I agree with Maddie. I've defended Aldridge for years on our page. Has he been perfect? No. Has he been, the best Spur of all time? Absolutely not. But I mean, he's gotten the job done for us time and time again, and he's been there for us in probably our worst years in a while. So, I mean, hats off to the guy for that. But yeah, it could have gone a little bit better in terms of the exchange, but I don't think it's much to worry about.
Do you know any other questions that were asked? Did you say it was 4 questions, or were there multitude of questions? I was kind of confused where that even came from. Do you know?
Yeah, I think they were just doing like a Q&A on their site. Okay. I know, like the Spurs have done some every now and then where they have like, for 2 hours, Bryn Forbes is going to be on answering any question you have for him, or Lonnie Walker is going to do it, and they kind of hand their account over to him. But I feel like that should be monitored, and that's how I don't know how they let that slip through, because somebody's in trouble over in Portland over this whole thing. I can guarantee that.
Yeah. I also don't know if it would have been as big of a deal if LaMarcus Aldridge didn't respond to it, because that's one thing I was wondering also. They immediately deleted that tweet right after he retweeted it. They were like, no, we got to scratch this. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Somebody is going to get in a lot of trouble. It's not going to be Dame, I'm sure, but somebody is going to get in trouble for that. Are you with us, Rob? I know that you were having some difficulties. Can you hear us?
I don't think you can hear us.
Oh,
He's
hey, Rob, you muted, bro.
I know he's muted. Let me try to I can.
There we go.
Yeah.
The party.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Rob, your audio's bad, dude. Yeah,
I ain't doing anything for me.
I'm on. Yes, Gregory said you can't hear anything, and then I can't hear anything when you talk on here. Hey, Rob, your audio's bad. Yeah.
I love that comment by Ruru. I love Ruru. She said,
How we can guarantee LA's deal for 2021, and again, these Portland rumors resurface. Coincidence? Hell no. And then I can't hear anything when you talk. That's my thing with like this whole tweet is like if you know or like he knows he signed into next year, like unless he knows he's gonna get traded or like there's something in the works, like why would you tweet that? It's just and again, I'm sure like his teammates, you know, all the Spurs players aren't looking at this thing, you know, just angrily, just kind of like, what the heck is this guy doing? Is he leaving? Like, I'm sure they don't think it's a big deal. But again, like, it's like she said, like you're signed on to next year.
mm-hmm.
You know, you're going to be a Spur at least for the time being. Like, it just seemed unnecessary because he knew that this was going to, you know, get people to start talking about it, but. You know, again, there's no reason for that.
Well, not to mention he wasn't tagged in the post. Like his name was just typed there, so like he searched that out and commented on it. And I was like, "Come on, man, you got to be better than that."
But here's my thing. Okay, here's my thing. All right, so when it comes to DeMar DeRozan, okay, I don't get too angry when it comes to DeMar DeRozan if he even, you know, mentions Raptors. Like he's still talking about the Raptors. He's, you know, on live streams with mainly Raptors players. I mean, I know he did one with Rudy Gay, but for the most part, he's been with Raptors players. I think that in his heart, he's a Raptor. He wants to go back to the Raptors, but he didn't choose to be here.
No.
You know, it just kind of happened that way, and it is what it is. Now, my thing with LaMarcus Aldridge, because I would take like a slightly different approach to this, like than you guys are, because I'll be honest, it irritates me. It's not that I hate LaMarcus, or I'm gonna go as far as like you said, Maddie. Somebody said that maybe Harrison said that somebody said that he was trash. He's not trash. I mean, he's a really good player. I mean, he's an all-American player. Like he can play, but my thing with LaMarcus Aldridge is I keep giving him like passes with certain stuff, like because he's the only guy that we had, because he's, you know, the pillar of everything that we've done. But at the same time, it's like, yo, you keep doing this type of stuff where you're mentioning the Blazers, and like Ruru said in the chat, you're with us. Like you're signed on a contract with the Spurs, and you chose to be here. And we get, you know, he got the contract. I know he wanted out at one point, but he talked to Popovich. Popovich said, hey, you know, come on right back in. But when he does things like this, it makes me feel like even if we're not good enough to win a championship, it makes me feel like his heart isn't completely invested in trying to win a ring here. And it just bothers me because it makes me think back even last season against the Nuggets in Game 7, and he just awful that whole game. And he's been with us this long, and he was awful the whole game. I'm like, okay, fine. You had a bad game. It happens. Game 7. It's not like Tim Duncan never missed, a not free throw, but a layup in a big game. So sure, I get it. But then at the same time, after the game, his whole like demeanor was like he didn't really care. Like it is what it is. Yeah, I didn't hear him. I should have called a timeout. I didn't. It's a lot of stuff with LaMarcus Aldridge with me personally that like it built up and it just bothers me. So like I understand where some people like get upset about it. Not as far as saying that, oh, he's trash, because he's not trash. And I understand that we need him, especially this season. I mean, we needed him to play well. But at the same time, certain stuff like this, in my mind, I'm like, yo, if we're losing with you, we can lose without you. And this stuff that's going on with him and like you said, Harrison, he wasn't even tagged in the tweet, man. Like, what do you do? Like, why would you even respond to it if you're not even tagged in it? I don't know. It bothers the heck out of me, man. It bothers the heck out of me.
Yeah, and like to your point, like I think what irritates me is he always walks that line. Like I mean, I don't care if he wants to go back to Portland. In your life, you got to do what you want to do, but we don't know if he's committed to us or to Portland is the problem, because he always, like I said, he always walks that line. Like, I mean, granted, I feel for the man sometimes, because when he signed up to be with us, this team now is not at all what he signed up for. He signed up for, I'm going to come in and be the guy. Kawhi is going to be my beta dog. We're going to have Duncan. We're going to win a title. And then we're going to have, guys for the foreseeable future and all that. Well, then they lost. Duncan retired. You had Parker leave. Ginobili retire. And then, the whole Kawhi situation. And there's pretty much everything he signed up for. I get that. But like you said, he talked to Pop. He signed an extension. He said, okay, this is the team. These are the cards we've been dealt. I'm going to stick it out. But then a couple weeks after signing the extension, when he gives that interview talking about, yeah, I'd love to go back to Portland. Like, dude, come on, timing, man. I mean, and it would have been, it's like we said, it's just, I'll give him an out and say, okay, maybe it's just poor wording. But like I said, he just thrown in like a couple words like, yeah, I'd go back to Portland for my last season or something like that. That would have made a world of difference, I think. But he didn't specify. He just threw that out there and let people do with it what they wanted to.
Is this like a desperate move, do you think, from Portland?
I wouldn't say desperate. I mean, Portland is I wouldn't say fringe playoff team, but they started winning some more games towards the end of the year. I think they would definitely take LaMarcus back if given the opportunity. But as it stands right now, I don't think Portland needs to be desperate. Especially with, they've proven they can get guys to sign with them. I mean, they got Melo, even though I guess Melo wasn't a huge hot commodity, but I mean,
that was a desperate move, if you ask me. Like, the first desperate move was Melo, and I don't know if it's just that Nurkic. What do you think about him and Nurkic?
Yeah, did you actually? I was going to ask you, Harrison. So I know we've talked. Oh, almost spilled my water again. Jeez. So I know we talked in the past about that draft day trade with LaMarcus Aldridge. So especially like now, I mean, would you kind of see that? I saw on Twitter there was like a trade machine. Someone was posted a trade machine picture of it was like LaMarcus Aldridge for Nurkic, Trevor Ariza, and 2 first-rounders. And then my first thought was like, oh heck no, like there's no way to do that. But well, I mean, I wouldn't trade Nurkic, but there was a decent point that Nurkic's value is kind of high because like people aren't going to want him after coming off that leg injury. And Trevor Ariza's contract expiring, I think, and the first rounders. I mean, I don't know how I feel about it personally, but I mean, we have said, like, you have mentioned, like that the front office is intrigued about a draft day trade with LaMarcus Aldridge, either to move up or down. I just want to get your thoughts if this would kind of push that a little forward or make that happen or even
see, the problem is with LaMarcus, he's what, 33, 34?
34.
Yeah, I mean, going to be 35 next year. A guy like that does not draw first-round picks. I know a lot of people want to talk about, dumping him for picks. First of all, we got to match the salary on him because no team has that much cap room. Second of all, a team that's trading for a 35-year-old vet, if anything, they're going to want us to give picks. They're not going to want to give up their shot at drafting a next young star, even if it's late in the first round, for a guy whose career is going to be over in 3 years. So as far as using LaMarcus to move up and down in this year's draft, I don't know that he can be used to move up, maybe down if you get the right team. But if I get a pick out of LaMarcus, I think it's probably going to have to be a pick that's 1, 2, 3 years in the future. So kind of an unknown. So it's a risk for us and a risk for the other team. You got both teams taking that. So, I mean, Nurkic, I don't think they'd trade him. I mean, frankly, I think if anything, they're going to try to unload Whiteside somewhere. Don't even get me started on him. I really don't want him a part of the Spurs. But I think they're pretty high on Nurkic. The only reason they got Whiteside was because Nurkic was injured. And at the same time, I think after they've struggled this year, talked about this being a role player's draft, they're going to want to use that pick this year to find a role player that can fit with their stars. And, you got a Reese's contract expiring, all that. I just don't see a trade working out. I mean, if he wants to go back to Portland, they can play the long game and get him back after next season. But it's going to be very hard to trade LaMarcus, and especially if we're expecting to get picks and stuff out of it. At most, I think maybe kind of a fringe good young player and an overpaid older player to come in for him, and I think that's an acceptable risk, but I just don't see teams giving us picks for him.
But do you think his value is that low? I mean, he has an expiring contract, so it's like kind of Portland with Hassan Whiteside. It was a win-win, because if he gives him value that year, then they can try to extend him, but if not, they can just dump him. But that's the same kind of situation for LaMarcus. He's still kind of a 15 to 20 point per game guy. I mean, he still can kind of compete at an all-star level. We saw spurts of that this year and especially last year. I just think that he has a little more value than that. I think a team like Miami that's kind of looking for one more piece, maybe like an Eastern Conference team that's kind of looking for one more piece to win now, could take a shot at him, just considering the fact, like I said, that he's got that expiring contract. So if it doesn't work out, then you just you dump him the next year.
Oh, I definitely think he still has value. I don't think it's the kind of value people are anticipating. I think his value is going to be in return assets, as in players. I just don't think we're going to get picks for him. I mean, I think there's some good players out there that people would be willing to give up to take a chance on LaMarcus. Like you said, he's a great player. But it just, when you get with those older guys, I mean, look at the Brooklyn Nets when they bought all in on Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, and that didn't work out. They took that risk, and then they had no first-round draft pick for like 5 years, and they are just now starting to recover from that. And you look at, I mean, Houston, if Houston doesn't work out with Russell Westbrook and all, they've mortgaged their entire future on that one gamble, and OKC gets all of that. Same with the Clippers. They did it for George. So I just don't see teams giving up future assets for him. I could see them definitely giving up current ones, but then we have to weigh, where do those current assets fit within our team, and is it worth getting rid of him for those assets, or do we just want to wait and let him walk in the offseason and have a bunch of cap space?
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, Rob.
I was just gonna say that the Spurs aren't. I don't think the Spurs are the type of team that make those moves. I think like a lot of other teams would, just to kind of hit your point there. A lot of other teams would trade those expiring contracts, but I think that looks bad on the Spurs. I feel like, like you said a few episodes ago, Spurs aren't really a team that attracts free agents. So we need to treat our players well, and that means like not doing them dirty in like last year's other contracts and things like that. So we could just keep this good reputation with the players in the league.
I was just going to ask you, either you or Destin, Gregory in the chat, he's been very active. He asked, can we get Aaron Gordon and Mo Bamba and cap filler for Aldridge? Actually, then he just said, never mind, forget Magic. Magic got Vucevic, whatever his name is.
Vucevic, yeah.
Yeah, Vucevic, I think, is realistic. I mean, he didn't have that great of a year. I think they may be looking to unload him, actually. after getting him back, just because he had been so great and he's getting old. I don't think they're going to trade Aaron Gordon for anybody right now, unless it's another young budding star. I know there was a lot of talk about that with DeRozan. I didn't even see it then. Just young player of that caliber, I think, is too valuable in this kind of league.
I don't see a trade for LaMarcus Aldridge at all. I mean, just from the basis that he has one more season left. He has a lot of juice left. I'll say that about LaMarcus Aldridge. It's not like he's just worn out. He's worn out better. I mean, he had his career high literally last year. So, I mean, he has, more in his tank. But I know everyone's talking about like trades or what they would want for him. How would you guys? I've been thinking about this trade for a long time. What if we traded LaMarcus Aldridge? Hear me out. For a peanut butter sandwich, would you take LaMarcus Aldridge for a peanut butter sandwich?
I think I saw
What kind of peanut butter we talking?
I saw Woj drop this one a few hours ago. Matter of fact, yeah.
Yeah, I saw someone on Twitter, someone on Twitter earlier this season was like, trade LaMarcus Aldridge for a bag of family size Fritos or Doritos or something, and then someone was like, I think a snack size would suffice. I mean,
and we wonder why he wants to leave San Antonio and go back to Portland.
Saying, though. I mean, I
don't put that on us.
Yeah,
he just doesn't like peanut butter.
Right. I mean, I feel like with DeMar and LaMarcus, like, I know their situations are tricky, with DeMar's deal this offseason and LaMarcus' expiring contract, but it's kind of like we talked about in our last video, because the Spurs can kind of play the longer game and just let their contracts expire, let DeMar walk, let Marcus Aldridge walk after next year, and then they have a ton of cap room to pay the young guys. But this is kind of my worry, is we all know this San Antonio is not really a free agency hotspot, as we've said. Mm-hmm. And what if the young guys don't really progress the way we want them to, and then all of a sudden we have our only two all-star players leave, and it's like, what are we left with? And we're obviously we're still going to keep investing in the draft, but that's great. We're going to draft two more guys this year and to play in Austin for 2.5 years and get 5 minutes a game of that last half year. But that's just my worry. Is like, I'm not saying I don't want them to stay, or I'm not saying I don't want them traded. I'm just saying I think we're going to probably wait it out, and the most likely scenarios we're going to wait it out and they're going to walk, which is fine. We're going to have a ton of cap space, but that doesn't mean we're just going to sign some, Giannis, KD, LeBron type free agent, So I'm more worried about, what are we going to do if that kind of backfires right in our face and we don't trade them and we have nothing to show for it.
I like the idea. It's funny you bring that up because I just like the idea of if they do walk and maybe we just kind of keep offering these 1 or 2 year deals to free agents. I like the idea of us, excuse me, always having money like in reserve for our Spurs that we've drafted for when they become eligible for those, for their next contracts after the rookie contract. I would always want to be in a position to be able to pay our guys versus, bringing in a big piece right away and locking us back into the same cap situation that we're already in.
I saw a comment in the chat that ended up saying, I want to know what you guys feel about it. I can't find it right now, but what they said was they feel like LaMarcus Aldridge is the most pampered San Antonio Spur.
Oh yeah,
that we
Would
you call him pampered?
LA more than any other Spurs star. It's ridiculous.
That's the truth, man.
Yeah, I mean, ever since that he requested a trade and Pop had that talk, I mean, I never understood that. You look at the situation more in context. Like, he came to the team. He knew his role was going to be a little smaller than it was in Portland, or maybe even more than that. But he was on two of the best teams in franchise history, 2 60-plus win teams, arguably a Kawhi Leonard injury away from winning a title. He was still an All-Star and All-NBA player in 15-16. He was 13th All-NBA and an All-Star. 2017, he was probably snubbed from the All-Star team, considering we were the second-place team in the league and only had Kawhi. Do you guys think it was just he didn't like Kawhi? I've heard theories that, because I heard they didn't get along, and And there's like always, and then there's a theory like if we would have traded LaMarcus back in 2017 for to make room for Paul George, would have Kawhi stayed? I wanted to hear your input on that.
Go ahead, Harrison. I saw that you were ready to.
Yeah, so I'll play devil's advocate a little bit. I think we got him here by telling him, you're going to be the guy, and we want you to lead this team back to glory. And I mean, I'll even admit, our first game with LaMarcus was back in 2016, 2015. That season start 2015, 2016 season. And that first game we played the Thunder, and I think Kawhi dropped 32 that game. That was his career high at the time. And I remember watching it thinking like, whoa, I didn't know he could do that. Because we'd seen him do well in a couple of playoff games, but until then, he wasn't seen as a superstar. He was just seen as a really, really good role player. And, I mean, he was very close to not winning Finals MVP. People forget that. I mean, a lot of people wanted DL. A lot of people wanted Parker to win it. I mean, it was a toss-up who was going to get it. And
Dan
he had
Green
that
was going to win it in 13.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, Kawhi had like that 129-point game in 2014. I think that's what kind of sealed it. But I didn't know he could be a player that dropped 30 on a nightly basis. And he did it multiple times at the start of that season. And I don't think the coaching office thought that he was going to do that either. They didn't think he was ready for that load. And I think that's why they got LaMarcus, to come in and carry the scoring load. And then you're looking at a guy who's been promised he's going to be the guy who's going to be carrying the load, and he's having to defer to some guy who's, still young and I guess I don't want to say unproven, but I mean, I guess not as vetted as Aldridge was. And I mean, that's tough right there. I know he's getting paid and all that, but I mean, it's kind of like if, you go to your job and you're told you're going to be in charge and all that, and then some kid who's like 16, 17 comes in and starts calling all the shots, and they're okay with that because he's doing a good job at it. Like, you want the company to do well and all, but it's tough because you feel like that was supposed to be your place and all that. And then on top of that, Kawhi was just so quiet, at least from what I've heard, is it's very hard to read Kawhi in general just because he's such a quiet dude. I mean, a lot of players, nobody would say they outright disliked him, but they'd say it was hard to know what he was thinking. And throughout all the drama stuff, they had no clue what was going on because he just wouldn't stay in contact with them. I think that adds to it. So I don't necessarily know if he didn't like Kawhi or he just had no idea where his head was at and felt like his trust had been broken. But at least from what I know, Pop kind of sat down and told him, okay, this is a new direction the team's going to be going. Are you on board? And from what I hear, he was pretty happy that Pop was just up front with him, and that kind of prompted a re-signing. And then all of a sudden, this Kawhi drama happens. So, like I said, I'm not excusing anything LaMarcus has done, but I do think he was just kind of thrown into a furnace here with drama, all this stuff happening, and not quite going as he expected it. So, that may be why. But I wouldn't say pampered, but I think because of all the irregular stuff that's gone on, Pop has taken extra time out of his days to, make sure he's doing all right.
Hey, Rob, your sign is backwards. So that's his sign. Just said follow us.
Can't do nothing
Subscribe
right
to our
today,
YouTube
man.
channel. OOC Spurs. We got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram up. I mean, we hope you guys enjoy our content and give us a follow if you like what you guys see here. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, OOC Spurs. But no, before I definitely think you're gonna say something, but before you do, I just hope that when it's all said and done and LaMarcus isn't a Spur and we kind of look back and reflect in years from now, that, obviously it'll be said, he was kind of a roller coaster with him, and that's for sure. But I hope he's more remembered for that 17-18 year when Kawhi was just left this entire fan base just in the dark and just kind of destroyed us. I mean, he was there. He kept the playoff streak alive. He kept that all-star, all-NBA streak alive. If that's something you value as a fan, then, you have to appreciate LaMarcus Aldridge for that. So I don't, I hope we don't take him for granted in that aspect. But yeah, again, I'm not saying what he, did was the coolest thing, but as far as superstars and NBA players go, they're worse to have than LaMarcus Aldridge. There's a lot of teams out there I've seen from, in the past few years that would kill for LaMarcus Aldridge on their team. So I hope Spurs fans don't, hate him for this.
I know that there's a notion that the Spurs chose LA over Kawhi. I don't buy that at all. But as far as to go off of what Harrison said, I know you were playing devil's advocate. The only thing I would say about that was, as far as, he felt like he was supposed to be the guy, and then it's like, okay, now, this guy's taking over. He's much younger, but Kawhi just won a Finals MVP, so that's another thing where it was like, this team was pretty established. Like we had a really nice squad, and I understood that he probably wanted to take on that role after Duncan, like post Duncan, because that's what he was probably thinking. Like, Duncan leaves, I'll take on that role. But I don't know. My whole thing with LA, because it took me a while to actually be irritated at all when it came to him, because I was so excited when we had him, and I was excited for a few seasons actually, and I had his back, through the whole thing. But I feel like he wants to be the main guy, or at least that's what it came across, at the time when he asked for a trade or he thought he needs to leave or something like that. He wanted to be the main guy. But when he was the main guy, it seemed like, or what am I trying to say? When he was the main guy recently, he didn't step up, in my opinion. When it's in the playoffs, when it's Game 7, we really need you. He didn't really show up. But when he's the second guy, he's not comfortable and he doesn't put forth the best effort. It's just kind of a weird thing going on, because it's like, you're not going to be the best player, just like DeMar DeRozan though, but you're not going to be the best player on a championship team, and it's probably just not going to go that way. But I feel like he wasn't really willing to take that back seat to Kawhi, because when I did see him play along with Kawhi, oftentimes it felt like he wasn't putting forth the most effort. But that's just what I've seen, and I don't know if you guys saw that at all, but that's just what I saw. What do you think about this, Rob?
I think, when they played together, there was definitely a lack of chemistry on the floor. Like, yeah, they played well. We won 60-some games. Like you said, we had good games, but when you saw it, it didn't look like, either of them were having fun. I think you hit it on the head. I think both, DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge are kind of the same. They need to be your second best player on a championship team, and both of those guys, I don't like everything you just said. I completely agree with. But I just feel like he did his time. He did a lot of work, like Harrison said. I hope that we all reflect when he was here. He put in a lot of work. You can go back and look at a lot of big games from LaMarcus Aldridge during the regular season. Of course, the last 2 years in the playoffs, he didn't really step up, but he did in that year that we went up against Golden State, where Kawhi was out the whole year. I mean, he did what he could. I think he did what he could that season. So that's I think been the story of LaMarcus Aldridge the whole time he was here, was that he's just kind of doing what he could, while he was here, and he's been a professional about it. I have nothing really bad to say against him. I think, who was it in the chat room? Gregory Castillo was like, yeah, I got to give him a shout out for being a Longhorn too. So there's that also. little Texas love there.
Well, and like to Destin's point, like I said, I play devil's advocate, but I mean, I also have my problems with the guy. And I think my biggest problem with him on our team is, you talked about comfortability, but I think that also translates, he's not a very adaptable player. And the Spurs are known for being the most adaptable franchise in the league. I mean, back in the day when we had the Twin Towers, we hung our hat on defense. Then we lose Robinson, and our team starts getting a little older, and you got Tony and Manu. Mainly Tony is your best player, so we start shifting towards offense, and that's how we won in 2007, was with our offense. And then you get to 2014, and it's okay. We don't have any superstars. We're gonna hang our hat on ball movement. And we're going to do that. And then we're going to have a bunch of defensive stoppers on the other end who can shut down everybody on the other team. And that's how we won. And, you talked about, I mentioned, he didn't have a defined role, but the problem is once he has his role defined, he just struggles to adapt to it. And it's pretty most noticeable this year because, we talk to him and say, look, we need you to take a back seat, be that the guy that can be a stretch four, come out, knock down some threes, move the ball. Well, he did that for a few games. I'll give him credit. And we started winning a couple games when he did that. But within about 5 to 7 games, he was back doing what he always does. And I know it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, but I feel like he's just very uncomfortable doing anything else than what he's known for like his last 15 to 17 seasons in the league. And we need somebody who can adapt to this modern league and that isn't uncomfortable trying something new with the team.
To add a little bit to that point, I don't know if y'all saw him this year during media day where the press was asking him, hey, are you going to shoot more threes or did you add anything to your game? And I don't know if y'all saw his response, but it was like annoyed. He was like, no, I'm just, I'm going to do what I do. I do the same thing I've always done. I just try to do it really well. And, they're like, oh, are you going to shoot more threes? He's like, I don't know. He's like, he just, like you said, he doesn't really want to adapt and change who he is. Because, and to give him a little bit of credit, he's very good at doing what he does. And he's one of the best in the league at doing what he does. But the value of it, I think, is depreciating, in the style of basketball that we're seeing today. So it's up to him to adapt. Either he is or he's not. And I think if he was going to adapt, there's still a place for him in this league for another 6-7 years, But is he going to do that? Is he going to want to change who he is and how he plays to stay in the league? That's up to him.
Yeah, I think his career could have lasted longer, and was still as like a very valuable player if he would have continued this trend of shooting threes. But not only that, if he could have taken a page out of Tim Duncan's book. Now he's not Tim Duncan, obviously we know that, but you look at Timmy's latter years, and even in 2014, like he wasn't putting up spectacular offensive numbers. We know this. His numbers dipped, his minutes kind of went down, and his usage on offense went down, but if you go back and watch the tape, he's to the day that he retired, he was still one of the best rim protectors in the league. I would always go to games when they would play the Bucks in Milwaukee, and it was just amazing how I've never seen anybody better at timing blocks than him, or timing when guys would drive to the rim and timing it so perfectly where he would contest the shot enough where it wasn't too much to foul him, but it was just enough to alter their shot. He did a great job with that against LeBron in the finals. But to go back to LaMarcus Aldridge, if he could have been that more of a defensive anchor for us, like a 3-point specialist, maybe not specialist, but a 3-point shooter on offense, we keep that spacing, and defensively, he was kind of our anchor. I would have said, hey, stick with us for the rest of your career. But, I don't really see that happening. Like you said, Harrison kind of went back to his old ways immediately. I was hopeful when he started shooting threes at a very high percentage. He was I think he was top 10 or 5 in the league in percentage. Obviously his attempts were nowhere near the other guys, but if he were to stay, that's what I would want to see out of him, but I don't think we're going to see that. So, I think either this year, either by a trade, or next year, just letting him walk and letting his contract expire. I don't really see him as a Spur after that. In the meantime, I don't know why he's doing this kind of stuff to make things worse. But I digress.
Well, and I can tell you, I think what's going to be very telling is what we do with Jakob Poeltl in free agency. Obviously, I think we're going to try to re-sign him. If we re-sign him, I can all but guarantee that Aldridge is going to be gone after this season because – and Rob, we'll probably break this down some when we break down some film. But one of the stark contrasts between the 2014 team and this team, we got similar pieces. You look, Jakob Poeltl is very similar to Thiago Splitter. But the thing is, the way that LaMarcus plays and where he plays on the court, you cannot play those two guys together. That's just going to clog the paint, and you can't play that style of basketball anymore in this league. It just won't work. And, people want to know why Trey Lyles is starting at center so much. Trey Lyles is a small forward, power forward. He's not a center. But he's athletic enough to at least attempt to do it. He's strong enough to do it, and he's not afraid to hit the three or drive from the perimeter. Jakob can't do that, and we don't expect him to do that. But when LaMarcus is in there with Jakob, it just stagnates defensively and offensively. So the rotations are thrown all out of whack when you have both of those guys. And I think looking at going forward, a lot of people say we found our center of the future in Jakob. And I think if he comes back, you got to find somebody who can work with him from the outside. And I think that's what we did in this past draft with Samanich. That's a guy who's going to be, in my opinion, I think he's going to be much better than Trey Lyles is right now. It's not a shot to Trey. He's very good. But I think he just meshes much better, and Aldridge would be much better suited with a different style of team.
Man, you put Luka with Jakob, and just if we can vision past, Luka's inconsistencies on defense. Let's say he improves those over a year, and we get Jakob and Luka playing together along the floor. I mean, y'all seen Luka's athleticism? Like, holy cow, man, this guy is a monster. And if he ever does develop that sense of timing at this level, him and Jakob on defense, Jesus.
Yeah,
and going back to 2014, Diaw was a good on-ball defender in terms of moving his feet. But even then, he'd get beat a couple times. He wasn't the most athletic guy. So I think the big thing with Samanich, even if he doesn't become that huge defensive stopper we want, he's got Pirtle there to back him up. The problem is this year, we have guys getting blown by out on the perimeter, like Forbes and DeRozan, who are never going to be great defenders. And, Aldridge, like we talked about, doesn't have the timing aspect down. Trey Lyles is not a defensive stopper. So it's just a layup line to the rim. And, if Samanich doesn't develop as much as we want defensively, he only has to be competent. He doesn't have to be great. We've got Jakob, who averages, if you look at advanced metrics, they do the per 36, per 38 minutes. He averages more blocks in that advanced metric than the top 15 centers in the league, including Anthony Davis and Embiid and Whiteside. I mean, he has that timing, and I mean, he's pretty athletic too. So he's your backup plan if that happens. So like I said, I think it's just assembling the proper team for it. And Aldridge may not be the right player to slot in there.
I saw in the chat, somebody ended up saying, do you guys believe that LaMarcus Aldridge is taking less touches this season? They haven't watched a lot of games, they say. And they were wondering that. I think that's a good question for you, Harrison, or even Rob, because I know you do a lot of the breakdowns of films and stuff like that. So, I mean, have you guys seen that, or have you seen it, Maddie?
Real quick, his shot count hasn't gone down. I mean, he's still taking the most shots, him and DeMar, on our team. However y'all want to slice it, per game, per 36 minutes, he's taking the most ticks. So I would say no.
Yeah, I think his usage is still up there. It's something that Spurs fans have kind of harped on and been frustrated about. It's why are, obviously, there are two best players, but, when we're losing these games constantly, why are DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge our highest usage players when we got, Derek White, who was coming off this fantastic year, DeJounte Murray, whose jumper was really starting to come along at the end of the season, Lonnie Walker, who had that breakout game against Houston, even Keldon Johnson towards the very end. He showed. I know we all think of him as a defensive stopper, but I think offensively he's shown his ability to drive to the rim and shoot the three. Maybe not. It was just kind of a small sample size, so maybe a larger volume sample size, he wouldn't be as efficient. But nonetheless, I think we wanted to see more usage go to the young guards because we're just kind of wasting the season away with. Is that your cat, Harrison?
Yeah.
We're just kind of
on the internet.
Is that a black cat just walked by you for that luck?
Yeah, if that ain't an omen for
Yeah.
LA, I don't know what is.
Yeah, but no, I didn't. We saw pretty much the same thing as last year. It just, I think we saw some somewhat minor, pretty actually more, I'd say major changes. Losing Davis Bertans and just player regression from Rudy Gay, Marco Bellinelli, Bryn Forbes, and
just a failure to act on that from, I don't know if it's Pop or the coaching staff or the front office, but that's, to answer the question, no, like his usage percentage is the same. I mean, he put up pretty similar numbers to last year, just, all the surroundings just weren't as good, I guess you could say.
Do all you guys have access to the chat and see what's in the chat?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you go to the link and you can look at it.
Yeah. I was just wondering, if you guys wanted to, wrap this up or keep going, but I thought it would be kind of fun if we all pick, a random topic from the chat and spoke about it.
Well,
cool. Whatever topic y'all pick. Yeah, tell us what's out there. We can do that.
You guys, what do you guys want us to talk about?
I'll go first. Gregory Castillo has thrown this out a few times. He's talking about our big banger, the Aussie, the former Spur, Aaron Baines, and bringing him back. And I actually kind of like that idea. I like the fact that he's shooting more threes this season, and he's still Aaron Baines. He's gonna be on a poster. He's gonna do some of those things. He's gonna come off the bench, but I don't hate it. I don't hate that idea, especially if we're like in a really bad spot with Jakob and LaMarcus. I like it.
Yeah, I like Baines. I think he fits. The only thing is, I don't know that we get both him and Jakob. I know a lot of people, and we're spoiled as Spurs fans because we've had some of the most dominant big men in all of NBA history. But just the way the modern league is, a lot of people don't go with more than one center on a roster, and they're downsizing. So, yeah, I'd absolutely love that Baines come back. I just don't see them getting both Jakob and Baines on the roster for similar reasons we talked about. I mean, I know Baines can hit the three, but it's going to be a real slow lineup if you put both him and Jakob out there. And with our guards and the speed they bring, I think they'd be much better with just one of them out there and kind of a speedy power forward. But yeah, I love Baines. I absolutely think he fits.
Hey, Harrison, this one's another one that's good for you because you're big on draft prospects. A couple people in the chat are asking what draft prospects would you have intrigued you for the Spurs?
So there's a couple. I'll talk about some high and low end. If you look at the high end, obviously everybody's heard Obi Toppin. That guy's really good. He's probably the closest thing I've seen to Amari Stoudemire. Still got to work on his outside game, but I think he's worth taking. I don't think he's going to fall to us at 11 to 13. I think he's going to go top 3. Denny Avdija is another one that's in there. Another thing people discount is we could just let Jakob walk entirely and pick a center. And there's plenty of good centers. I mean, there's Vernon Carey out of Duke, who's kind of an old school guy that I'd compare to Steven Adams. I actually wrote an article for your page talking about trading down.
Yeah.
And I actually like Paul Reed out of DePaul. I mean, he's kind of your poor man's Obi Toppin. I mean, he's 6'9", 6'10". He's a small forward. I really like Jordan Nwora out of Louisville, who I think is kind of your poor man's Denny Avdija. He does a little bit of everything really well. And then if people think we need a big man down low, you got a guy like Udoka Azubuike out of Kansas, who's just, big defensive anchor. He kind of does exactly what Vernon Carey does, but he's valued lower. So, for people who haven't read, my reasoning for that is it's a role players draft. And I think if you're going to be drafting a role player in the lottery, maybe try to trade that for a future first in a later draft that is star-studded that you could get into the lottery. Because I think a lot of these first-round guys are going to end up doing about the same outside of maybe 4 or 5 of them. And I could be very wrong. But, I'm going to dive into a lot more draft prospect stuff on my page and on Maddie's blog in the future because I love that stuff. So, yeah. But right now, those are the names that jump out to me.
Do you think we should keep going? I think we should wrap it up.
You got one in the chat room, Destin, or?
Yeah, you guys basically hit it. I've been seeing a lot about Shemezi Metu.
Yeah,
I see one about LaMelo Ball. I don't. Yeah,
I think that's a joke.
On that one. I think I can speak for everybody.
I think LaMelo's going to Detroit. I'm going to throw that out there right now.
But yeah, what do you guys think about this? Will be the last question of the night, if you guys are cool with that. What do you think about Chimezie Metu? Do you think that he will eventually be in the starting lineup? Do you think he has a future with San Antonio? Like, what's up?
Yeah, we talked about this on your podcast, Rob. I was upset, to say the least, when LaMarcus and Jakob got hurt and we didn't call up Chimezie. I don't know if it was Harrison or Rob that pointed out that they had consistency issues with Chimezie. I mean, obviously his ceiling's been a little higher. He's put up higher numbers in the G League, but it wasn't as consistent as what Drew Eubanks was giving. I mean, although Drew Eubanks' numbers and stuff wasn't high, he was still kind of giving you this. You know what you were getting from Drew Eubanks every night, and so that's why he got the nod. But I think Chimezie's, just given that his ceiling is just so much higher. I'm not trying to hate on Drew Eubanks, but I just don't see a ton of value. I know you're high on him, Rob. Maybe you're better qualified to talk about him because you've seen him play up front in the G League. But I look at him as a 6'9" kind of big that can't really shoot. He's not really a dominant force down low. He's not a great rim protector because he's only 6'9". I'm not saying he's terrible or that I hate him, but I just think Chimezie Metu with his athleticism and his reach, and I've seen him play in person, and he's got a pretty decent outside jumper that he's been working on. I think his upside is way higher than Drew Eubanks, and I think a lot of people compare him to Clint Capella. He's kind of that Clint Capella type player, catching lobs and protecting the rim and rebounding, and I really actually kind of see that he's kind of a poor man's Clint Capella. And so I'm high on Chimezie. I'm not as high on Drew Eubanks as maybe Rob or other Spurs fans are. So if I had to choose, I would go with Chimezie going forward. But we haven't seen him. We've only seen small sample sizes from both of them. So if we're going to make a real judgment, we're going to need a larger sample size to kind of make a judgment from.
What about you, Rob?
I feel like this year might have been a little bit of Spurs doing guru mind tricks on Chimezie, kind of like what they did with Lonnie Walker in the beginning of the season. I felt like they could have gave him minutes, of course, right? But they didn't. They wanted to make him earn it and things like that. And I feel like they kind of did that with Chimezie here when they brought up Drew. I felt like Chimezie was probably like, why didn't I get the call? You know what? Now I'm going to go down here in Austin and just prove that I should have got the call. And he kind of did, right? He went for like 2 or 3, 30, 20. I don't know what he had some crazy stat nights in Austin right after that. And, I see him a little bit differently than you, Matt. I kind of see him as a poor man LaMarcus Aldridge, to be honest. I see him as a guy with skill, with a guy with a shot that can shoot it from the mid-range, from the short corner, and he's more willing to step out and hit a couple threes too. So I like him. I'm a little bit biased on Drew Eubanks. I just love the guy. I think he's an awesome guy, awesome teammate, awesome all those other things that are off the court make me just want to keep him around as long as possible. But if I were to give the nod to one of those two guys, you're absolutely right, Matt. Chimezie has a huge ceiling. I mean, he can do it on both ends of the floor. We've seen it in flashes, like Harrison said. He just needs to do it consistently, and I hope that he is going to be a guy who gets his shot. That's all I can really ask for him right now is I want him to get his shot. I want to see what he can do. I want him to see it. I want to see it like unfold in front of our eyes. Like I've been waiting for this. I feel like he's one of those guys. Comes from Nigeria, had a great summer. Nigeria didn't play all that well, but he played well, I think, individually. Like he started off not playing in the summer, and then by the end of the tournament, he was like their leading scorer, leading rebounder, and he was putting up some nasty highlights as well over there in where was the FIBA at? No. Anyways.
Oh, yeah,
the
I
FIBA
forget.
games this past summer. So I think he has a huge ceiling, like you said, Matt, and I want him to get the nod just to get some minutes, and then we'll take it from there.
My last point here before we head out. As far as when we talk about all the young guys, and especially in a couple of years, like we talked about when all these veterans contracts are expiring, we have to, figure out who we're going to pay and, maybe sign some free agency. I hope the front office has a plan to give more usage and minutes to the young guys, to Lonnie Walker, to DeJounte Murray, to Keldon Johnson, to Derek White, to Chimezie Metu, to Drew Eubanks, or at least one of those guys. One of the bigs, because if, we want to figure out who we want to pay, we need to see these guys in action. We need to see these guys under pressure. And I know, we shouldn't, be too quick to judge, obviously, but I think if you get like a whole season sample size, you can really kind of, even 2 years, or 2 seasons, because, they're, or no, actually would be this season, because after this season, the contracts are expiring. But you get a whole season of, 82 games, maybe if we're lucky and make the playoffs, and you can even see them in action there. you can kind of make a judgment of, all right, who do we want? Who do we like the team? Who do we want to, continue to be a part of this franchise going forward? And, who do we want to cut ties with, or maybe, send off in a trade or whatever the case may be. I love the young guys. I hope they're all sticking around, but the reality is we might not see all of them, be a Spur forever. So I hope we get a lot more of this year, and then after the year after that, we can kind of, make a determination of who we kind of want in this team going forward.
Yeah, and one thing about Chimezie Metu, the one complaint that I see all the time is that he don't have a lot of muscle. But we did see him go onto Instagram, and he was talking about how he's building up muscle. So that should be exciting too. So he should have a little more strength on him going into the next season.
With Metu, for me, I'll give my comparison. To me, Chimezie Metu is Damian Lee from the Warriors. He's a little lanky. He's big. He can shoot a little bit, dribble a little bit, and he's kind of a tweener in this league. But one thing I really like that I saw from him that you just won't see from Eubanks much, and I love Eubanks, but Metu, one, has that athleticism that's just untapped. Two, he made a lot of dumb mistakes in the preseason, but when he played towards the end of the year, watch his feet, because his footwork was night and day, and that's Tim Duncan on the coaching staff right there. And as far as muscle goes, you don't need a ton of muscle if you can, out strategize your guy. And I think that's going to help him a lot. If he can keep developing that and add the shot with it, he's going to get some time this coming season.
Yeah. I'm excited for him. I think we're all pretty excited for him. As far as will he be a starter or not, who knows? But it's the San Antonio Spurs, so does it really matter? But all right, guys, I really enjoyed it tonight. Did you guys have fun?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate everyone
Always.
who was in the group, the chat room. Thank you guys. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, you guys gave us some great questions, great material, great comments. So you just keep that up. And also, guys, please go check us out at OOCspurs.com. That's basically our website where we're going to have all our content. You can go over there. You can support us. You can get merch, all that stuff. So if you could do that for us. Also, I would like to go ahead and everybody just plug where they could find you guys. So we can start with Maddie.
Yeah, you can check us out, Spurs Fan Blog on Instagram or on our website, spursfanblog.com. We're pumping out articles every week. Harrison below you, if you like, or below me, if you like his content. He's been writing articles for us. He does a great job. He's, like Destin said, he's our numbers guy. He's a numbers guru, and he's been writing some great articles lately. So if you like what you heard here today, check out our page. A lot of the same content, and I'll pass it off to Rob.
Yeah, you guys can always find everything at buckingspurs.com. Stop what you're doing right now. Do not close this window, and go follow all of us that are in here. And especially go follow our new page. That's our collaboration page, like Destin was saying, OOC Spurs.
Yeah, and our primary sources, we're on Facebook. We're facebook.com/San Antonio Spurs Talk. We also have an Instagram and a Twitter, and those are both at SA Spurs Talk. So yeah, give us a follow. We're going to be retweeting everything that we put on the Order on the Court pages, sharing that on Facebook. And don't forget our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Order on the Court. We're pretty much on every social media platform. So
yeah, if you're looking for us on Instagram, it's OOCSAS. And me, I'm Clan the Spurs fan. You can find me on YouTube, or you can find me at Spurs Dynasty or Spurs Wave on Instagram as well. Well, I really appreciate everybody coming through. We had a great time. Please follow, subscribe to Bucking Spurs, and subscribe to Clan the Spurs fan. We'll keep you updated with everything that's going on with our collab. And until next time, guys, go Spurs go. You stay safe out there.
Go Spurs go.